finally, we, of course, ended up flying out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and meeting mission president there, President Shumway. Love that man to death. Not serving there anymore. It's President Loveland now. I'll talk about him here later, but President Shumway and Sister Shumway were just so wonderful. I remember just walking down the stairs. Me and my companion were the first to go down the escalators, and Sister Shumway covered up my name tag from her view, and she's like, "Oh, it's Elder," and then President Shumway's like, "Sister Shumway, it's Elder Harding. Get it right. Come on." So it was funny. It was so awesome. Just the spirit and the radiance that came off of them. I knew that they were called of God to be my mission president and mission president's wife. Talked about the culture of the mission, what was going on in the mission, the ideals of the mission, just a bunch of stuff that they just threw at us within about 6 to 8 hours. It was a lot, maybe even less than that. Next day, met the best trainer in the world, Elder Brandon Morris. He's the best. Tall as a building, probably about 6'6", but thin as a twig. He's probably weighed about as much as I did at the time, maybe about 170, 180. But oh gosh, he gave me a big hug and smiled and said, first thing he said to me was, "Elder Harding, you ready to have some fun?" I said, "Sure, I don't know what's going on. I'm just kind of here for the ride." So I finally went to my first area. Was as his first trainee. We shotgunned the area, or what we call shotgunned, or what's called whitewash as well, I guess. Went and shotgunned the area of Bartlesville, Oklahoma, home to Phillips and Conoco, Phillips 66 and Conoco. Lots of members involved with those two companies, with oil and gas. But very, very quickly learned, I guess, the area and the culture and everything, which was fun. It was the best mission in the world. Went from the Oklahoma Tulsa mission, the only true mission, OTM, to the ABM, the Arkansas Bentonville Mission. Kind of renamed it from the only true mission to the Almighty's best mission. It was I can't remember the other acronyms, but there was a lot of pride in the mission, a lot of pride, a lot of hope, a lot of good people, a lot of good missionaries. I don't remember a whole lot as far as the history in that area. I think the biggest thing is probably with Arkansas. It's the headquarters of Walmart, so you meet a lot of people there. So there's a decent amount of history. You just gotta keep your eyes and ears out open. There's a good amount there. With the religious climate and the challenges there's a big difference. Just going from Salt Lake to that area of Missouri and Arkansas and Oklahoma, there's a huge culture shift. Religion is huge over there, which I wasn't accustomed to. All I knew was the church, was the Latter-day Saint Church. I had heard of Baptists and Catholics, but really didn't know anything else but that. I didn't know what they were or what they believed, anything like that. And it wasn't until I was basically thrown in head first into that culture, which the culture was. You talked about church. That was just part of your everyday talk and everyday life. Whereas here, it's not. It's a little bit more taboo than anything. You still talk about it, but when you come into work on Monday, you don't necessarily talk. If you do, you do. But if you don't, it's not a big deal. If anything, if you're a member and you're talking to a friend that's not a member, you don't really talk about church. Out of 10 times, it maybe happens once. Whereas out there, it happens more times than not, where you go into work, people go into work on Monday, or you talk with them on a Monday, and you're like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" You not only talk about Saturday and Friday, Saturday, you talk about Sunday, your church worship, what happens, who speaks, what rituals are done, things like that. You talk about the doctrines that are taught, a decent, in-depth talk about church. It was a culture shock, but it was a good culture shock. I liked it. It was good to find out what religions, what cultures were there, very much Christian churches over there, a lot of Baptists, a few Catholics. Mostly it was the Hispanics that were Catholics, but many Baptist. There were some atheists and whatnot, but a lot of Baptists, a lot of Christian denominations there, even some non-denominational, but still believed in Christ and God. But I mean, there were even a few Eastern religions like Hindus and Buddhists, but very, very religiously diversified. Everybody was very strong and knew, or at least thought they knew, their religions and practiced it as best as they could, and were very, very devout, good people. Obviously, didn't have the whole truth from what we know in the LDS church, but it was an awakening to me to see how devout my brothers and sisters could be to any religion, and to see that they really wanted to follow whoever or whatever it is that they wanted to. It was wonderful to see that. It was a great change in that respect. As far as missionary work goes, I would assume just without any mission, you're going to work. You get up at 6:30, and your day starts, and your day does not end until your eyelids close. You are constantly, you're either praying, you're walking, you're studying, you're teaching, you're doing something. You're always doing something. Even as just eating, I mean, there were times where I was either eating breakfast or eating lunch and knew I needed to study heavily for some investigators, just because I knew that the study time wasn't going to be enough. Just the 1 hour that I had, I was like, this is not going to be enough. I need as much time as I can get to study. And then once 10 o'clock hits, we're out, we're hitting the pavement hard. Either have our driving figured out, or our biking figured out, walking figured out, knowing who we're going to see that day, getting out, getting to work. If you're afraid to work, being a missionary is not for you. You got to be ready to get up, get going, and serve our brothers and sisters, be able to share the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. There's at least a branch, if not a ward, in just about every single city or combined cities of the mission. I don't think there's too many branches. There are more wards than there are branches, but there's not a temple necessarily in the mission. The closest ones are the one in Kansas City. There's the St. Louis one, the one in Little Rock, I believe, and then Oklahoma City. The only way we were able to be able to go to those outside the mission was if we had a recent convert who's going for their first time for baptisms, and we could take them there if we got permission from the mission president. Either that, or they were getting their endowments. We had taught and saw all the way through baptism, and taught the converts even after that, and they were getting ready for their endowments. We were able to go with them to the temple to receive their endowments. And so I was fortunate that I had a convert in Bartlesville, actually. Her name was Larice. Short little black lady. She was wonderful. I ended up baptizing her, and that next week Bishop insisted that she join the ward to go on a ward temple trip to the Oklahoma City temple. So we got permission for that, and it was wonderful to see her enter the waters of baptism for her ancestors, and the bishop even himself helped her find some ancestors to be able to take to the temple. So that was really fun. I think that President Loveland, who's serving now, might have changed temple attendance for missionaries now. Might have to ask him about that, or whoever ends up coming in next. I think his service might be up here soon, but there are unfortunately no temples in the mission itself. So back to Bartlesville. Elder Morris and I went and checked out our apartment. A little messy, unfortunately, from the last elders. Ended up cleaning up within a couple hours and got our stuff situated, and just started walking around trying to find people to teach. Threw our bags over our shoulders, walked out the apartment, and I think we found a couple of people to talk to, and obviously weren't interested. It felt like it was throwing me in the deep end. But just interesting to see, still interesting to see how open people are to talking about religion, though. that even here in Salt Lake, that in a city like this where it's very, very Mormon dense, that you can try and stop somebody to talk about religions, but you're maybe going to catch them for 2 seconds maybe. But out there, you could probably stop them for at least 30 seconds and maybe ask them, what church they go to. That's always the biggest question: is what church do you go to? And you can talk about what they believe, and segue into the church, which is really cool. Other than for Bartlesville, other than those 2 big oil companies, the only other thing I could think of that you might see if you end up actually in Bartlesville itself is, I think the other big thing I remember is there's these big cows. They're kind of plastered cows, huge big old monuments just kind of around the room, just kind of painted funny. They're kind of cool. After Bartlesville and being trained there, served for 3.5 months there, I ended up being transferred to Rolla, Missouri. I think probably the biggest thing Rolla is known for that I can think of is the college that's there. It's Missouri S&T, the Science and Technology School, home of the Bears, if I remember right. There was a YSA, I think it's a YSA group that's there now. My companion at the time, he and I were able to help start just a YSA little group. It was probably about 6 to 10 YSA members that were there. So that was kind of fun to help start that, and I think it's come up to a branch now. So if you end up in Rolla, it's fun. It's definitely a college. It's got a college feel to it. I mean, there's still kind of a backroads feel the whole mission has, that it's a back in the woods, homey type of feel, but that's got a college town feel to it as well. Went to Rolla after that. Went to Stockton, Missouri, which biggest thing that's known for is fundamentalists, people who practice polygamy still. There's a big, what we call a ranch of people that are polygamists. There are a few members that are on there that don't practice polygamy anymore, who through the first presidency in the Quorum of the 12 have I guess repented of that and changed their ways and come over to the church that don't practice anymore, that still live in that area, use them as help to teach others, but very high, dense fundamentalists there who practice polygamy. They're still really good people, very, very good people, very friendly, but there's that. But Stockton was really, really fun. Had probably the hardest transfer I had there. Was killing off a missionary. I was very checked out. Ready to go home. It was the last transfer, but got through it. It was a really good area. After Stockton, went down to Springfield, Missouri. It's very, very city-like. It reminded me of Salt Lake in a way. It was very, very busy, very Salt Lake-esque, but still had its Missouri charm. It's still backroads feel that everybody was kind of weird in their own way. After Springfield, I went down to Bentonville, Arkansas, which I mentioned as far as Bentonville goes, is home of Walmart. Several members who are involved in Walmart corporations and all the home office that's there in Bentonville, as well as the stores that are there. Members who work there as anything from cart pushers and cashiers and stockers, all the way up to the marketing team and the CFOs, CEOs, all the way up there in the big wigs, that there are members all the way through the lines of Walmart. It was wonderful to see that even though people are up there higher up in the companies, that they're still humble, that they still serve one another. The camaraderie that's there, not only in Bentonville, but throughout the mission is wonderful to see. A dangerous spiritual story I remember is I was in Springfield. I was shotgunning it with an elder who had just barely got off his training, so I was his follow-up trainer. His name was Elder Gehring. Love that kid to death. And I were shotgunning an area. We were probably 2 or 3 weeks into the transfer, and we were just going door to door basically. And then we got a text of a referral that was asking for a Book of Mormon, so we tried dropping it off, wasn't there, left our number, and we're starting to bike away because we realized we were needing to get back to our apartment so our dinner could pick us up for that evening. And there was a guy who was just walking up the street and called us over and wanted to talk to us. And we're like, oh, cool. You know, this is, guy sought us out and wants to talk to us, like he recognizes this will be cool. And he goes, here, come off to the side for a minute. And just the way he said that and the way he was carrying himself, I looked at Elder Gehring, he looked at me, and a sudden sense of uneasement. I was very uneasy at the time. So I was a little cautious, still figured, you know what, let's give this guy a try. He may not be so sketchy as he looks. See if we can talk to him for a quick 5 minutes and get out of here. Pulled off to the side into someone's driveway, and come to find out he was a preacher of some, I think it was like a Baptist church or something like that, and he just started ripping into us. He started bashing us left and right. Different doctrines about Joseph Smith was an imposter, Book of Mormon's false. It was a piece of crap. It was, I mean, just everything he could possibly throw at us, he did. And my companion and I just stood there on our bikes and just took it. And it was as if somebody spiritually was punching me in the face, in the gut, and was just taking my testimony and just tearing it apart. And it hurt. It was bad. Finally got a text from our dinner that they were there at our apartment, which fortunately was only about 5 minutes away. So while the gentleman was talking to Elder Gehring, my companion, I texted him back and told him that we would be there. And as I'm texting, I'm praying in my mind. I'm like, please let us be able to get away from this guy. You know, if we could talk to him for 30 seconds and give him our number, that'd be great. But I'm not even holding my breath for that. Heavenly Father, please let us get away from him. And so we finally were able to just segue away from him. And I kind of turned back, and he just kind of stood there, looked up at the sky, and I could tell he was kind of grinning. And I was like, he thinks he beat us, and he didn't. Which on the inside, I'm like, I feel like he just beat me up spiritually. So we got to our dinner, and for the rest of the night, that was all I could really think. I mean, we had a couple lessons, and they went decently, but my mind and my spirit was just like you take a towel and you just wrench it, and that's how my spirit felt. I just felt wrenched, and I couldn't do anything. So we finally came home that night to our apartment and got ready for bed, and I just sat on the couch, and I just couldn't. It was bad. I couldn't do a thing. Elder Gehring, bless his heart, came over, sat next to me, and he said, are you okay? And I said, I don't know. And I about cried. And he said, what can I do? I said, I don't know. And he goes, what happened? So I referred back to that situation earlier with that guy. So we kind of talked about it a little bit, and you know, as missionaries would do sometimes with your lessons, you beforehand obviously prepare the lesson, you go through the lesson, and then when you leave, you talk about how the lesson went, what went well, what to do again, so that people can feel the spirit and whatnot. But then also what went bad and what to change and what to do over and to fix, so that you become a better missionary and that you help your companion to be a better missionary. So we went over that a little bit for a few minutes, but then I finally just said, Elder Gehring, I just need a moment by myself. He goes, okay, I'll go to bed. So he went to bed. It was probably about 9:30. He went to bed a little early. And I just sat there, and I'm like, what do I do? And the Spirit spoke to me. It was the same Spirit that I remembered and felt as I remember sitting in my living room with my family just hanging out, that told me that I knew the Book of Mormon was true. The Spirit said, you need to read the Book of Mormon now. So I grabbed my scriptures, and I just started reading. I don't even remember where I read. I don't remember what I read. But I do remember, just reading and feeling that peace, that same peace that came over me, and knowing that the church was true, that same peace came back to me. And I felt my spirit lift. I felt better. And I came in, and Elder Gehring goes, you okay? As he smiled at me, and I said, yeah, I'm okay. And he goes, you look better. You look like yourself now. And I said, thanks. So we said a prayer and thanked Heavenly Father for the day as usual, and went to bed. And it was that was an intense evening. So you might end up having some intense evenings like that. You might have some bashings, you might have some brawls verbally with some brothers and sisters. Try not to get into that, because it can tear your soul, and it can tear their soul, their spirit, their testimony. If anything, build on their testimony, build on yours, have common ground, and if you can, get to sacred ground of the gospel. If you can't, the Spirit will let you know, and just let it be. Just know that they're not ready yet, and just to carry on and find the people that Heavenly Father's prepared for you. Let's see, I'll probably start off with a crazy and dangerous story. So that part of the mission is known as Tornado Alley, that there's several tornadoes that go through there, through different parts of that area, per year, really, even per season. If I remember correctly, I think tornado season's like March-ish through probably about this time in October. Doesn't carry on too long, really. I think that probably the hype of it is probably from about April till July, August, so really during the heat of the summer, but it can even carry on into the fall sometimes. But speaking of tornadoes, right in Bartlesville, it was kind of towards the end of my training with Elder Morris, our mission president, one of his sons who lives in Pleasant Grove, Utah, ended up bringing a group of youth to the mission, some priests, a couple teachers, and some laurels from their youth group to the mission, and they put each young man and young women into each of the areas. It was divided among 3 stakes, and the stake that Elder Morris and I were part of was part of that, and it was the Bartlesville Third Ward, the Bartlesville, or not the Bartlesville stake. It's the Bartlesville stake now. It's the Tulsa stake, if I remember correctly. Anyway. So we ended up having a young man with us, so it was a tripanionship, a threesome, and we were teaching a lesson in the evening. It was just after dinner. We were finishing up the lesson, and it was either just before or just after we said the prayer that we could see just this big black wall cloud thing several miles in front of us, and we were, of course, a little worried about it. We're like, that's probably a good-sized storm that's coming, but hopefully it holds till 9 o'clock and when we need to go into our apartment. So we ended our lesson and got back to our apartment and looked at it, and it was a lot closer. The storm had rolled in very quickly, but we still had, I think, about 15 minutes left. It was about 8:45, and one of the rules in our missions, we stay out till 9 o'clock. That we had, or sometimes what our mission president called it, 8:59 miracles, where if you stay out until 9 o'clock, you will have a miracle. You'll be able to talk to somebody or think of somebody or call somebody at 8:59 or even before then. So let's see if we can go get an 8:59 miracle. So we walked down a couple of streets and didn't see anybody. Walked down a back alley that we usually do as a shortcut. And as we started walking down that alley, it started to rain a little bit, which doesn't deter you much. It's just rain. It's not a big deal. But by the time we got down to the end of the alley, it was starting to rain down pretty good. We weren't necessarily drenched yet, but we were watered down. So we crossed the street and trying to knock on somebody's door and didn't answer, and then flash of lightning, big thunderclap, and it was starting to get scary. It was starting to rain cats and dogs, almost literally. It was bad. So we asked Elder Morris, I'm like, what time is it? And he looks at it and he goes, we still have 6 minutes. And I'm like, well, it might take us that time to get back to our apartment. And he kind of agreed. So we started to make our way. As soon as we started to make our way, there was another big flash of lightning and thunder, and we were a little scared. I was scared. I was worried we were going to get shot by lightning or something, but said a quick prayer in fact, we had the young man say the quick prayer for us to be able to get home safely. So like I said, you're always praying, always teaching, always doing something. So said a quick prayer and ran across the street again, back down the alley and back up towards our apartment, which is a pretty good decent sized grade back up to our apartment. And there was probably a good 1 or 2 inches of rain on the ground that was just a stream coming down the road, and it was hard. There was wind blowing at us, a couple lightning streaks, couple thunderclaps on the way up as we were making our way up, and it was the longest walk type deal that we took to our apartment. I think it was the longest one, because I could barely see my face in front of me. I think I probably had it a couple inches in front of me, and I could barely make it out. It was that raining that hard, that dark. So we finally make it back to our apartment, got in. We just stood there. We were soaking wet. We had water just dripping off of us. Elder Morris went and grabbed some towels and dried ourselves off. Our phone was drenched. Everything we had was drenched. We set our scriptures out, or preached my gospel, everything out to dry. Our phone was dead. Put it in some rice to dry it up, and said a prayer that it could work, and turned it on. And we called our mission president and the district leader just to say that we were okay. After we finished the second call to our district leader, we saw that our phone had died. So he said another prayer of thanks that we got back safe and that our phone worked. Woke up the next morning, everything was fine, but we come to find out later, it was probably about 8 months later, my trainer ended up becoming one of the assistants to President Shumway. And we're talking about that time, and President Shumway knew that there was a tornado that was in that area, and he looked into it and realized that about a mile away was a tornado. And so we were kind of getting the end strokes of the tornado, if you will, kind of the end of the tornado that was hitting us really hard. So I kind of say that we were about a mile away from a tornado, so we got to kind of run through it. So this is kind of fun. But tornadoes are very serious. That, if you see a big black cloud or the sky gets green, you start hearing thunder or what sounds like a train. But you're not necessarily maybe close to a train. It's serious. You need to get down under. Tornadoes can be bad. Just make sure that you're safe, and if you can, start calling your leadership, making sure that you're okay, and doing whatever the mission protocol is to make sure that everybody's okay and accounted for, so that the mission president's wife would most likely, as soon as everybody's accounted for, let the parents know through social media or texting or whatever it is that you're safe, because your safety is vital and when it comes to that. It's so much fun to call your families, whether it be to have an iPad or an iPhone and FaceTime them, or to Skype them, or even just picking up the phone and being able to hear their voice. It is so much fun to call their families. The best way that you can possibly get a hold of them, you should do. If you can actually see their faces and listen to them, do that. I was fortunate enough that in all the areas I had, I was able to FaceTime my family, and so I was able to physically see, or I guess not physically, but through a screen, obviously, be able to see all their faces and hear their voices. So it was nice to catch up, to spend an hour with them via technology, and to catch up with them. I think probably my favorite one was during Christmas time. During my time in Stockton was most meaningful to me, because I was having a really hard time with my companion with the area. There were several times where my companion wouldn't even get up until like 2 in the afternoon. He would just sleep in until 11, maybe at the earliest, noon, 1, and would then go to the bathroom and hang out and do whatever he did in there for another couple hours, and then come out and have his breakfast, his first meal of the day. And we didn't do hardly any work. I hounded on him as much as I could, but nothing was happening. So it was finally nice. He ended up going home on New Year's Day, but it was nice to have that Christmas break where if we could do work, then we were encouraged, but we didn't have to. Just because it was Christmas, we knew we didn't want to interrupt people's plans. But what was nice is we lived in a trailer on the Pulsivers home there in Stockton, Missouri. Best family there, in my opinion. I love them to death. Pulsivers had us over for dinner that night, and let us call our families. And so I had one of the members' iPhones, and I was able to call him, and it was so nice to be able to see friendly faces, to hear friendly voices, and to catch up with them. I probably spent more than an hour. It was probably hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. I probably took longer, but I felt like I deserved it. I felt like I needed it, and I know I did. So I remember my dad specifically took the iPad that he was using and took it aside. It was probably like the last minute or two of the call, and he said, "Son, keep working hard this last week. I know it's going to be hard, but keep up the spirits, because the work is going to continue." I said, "I know, Dad, thanks." And of course, I didn't know that it was really going to pick up, which it did, which was nice. But just having that encouragement from my family right then was nice. But of course, all the calls for home were nice. So I was on exchanges in Springfield as a zone leader. I was on exchanges with the district leader, and went and searched out a referral that we had gotten for a Book of Mormon. Actually, it was a member referral that had texted us. Said that they wanted to go to church, wanted a Book of Mormon, yada yada. So went with, his name was Elder Dye, was the district leader. I love that kid to death too. You end up loving, either loving or hating your companions, and then loving your leadership and the other missionaries you serve around. You come to love them very much. So the Elder Dye, and went and sought out this, what we thought was just a guy, but ended up being a couple who I don't believe was married at the time. But it was a couple, and then another guy who were just living in this small little one bed apart. I don't even think there's a bathroom in there. It was just on top of this fourplex. If there was a bathroom, it was like super small, and we didn't even see it. But we were in their living room, bedroom, kitchen area, and shared the Book of Mormon with them and talked to them a little bit. And Elder Dye was just like, can we teach you? We have a spare 30 minutes. Can we teach you? And they're like, yeah, sure. So we sat down and started teaching them. I think, well, before we started teaching them, though, we said, we have an important message. We laid it down and said, this is who we are. This is why we're here. This is what we're going to share with you. We laid it down. As President Shumway would say, you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So you do a kind of a preview. Tell them what you tell them what you're going to tell them. You have a preview. Then you tell them. You have your lesson with the Spirit, and then you tell them what you told them. You review it so they understand it. Extend your invitations, all that other good stuff. So we told them what we were going to tell them, and then we told them and had our lesson, which went fabulous. Got all the way up to the first vision, and I ended up having the privilege of reciting it. That was I think my favorite thing to teach, other than teaching about eternal families in the plan of salvation. I think the restoration, reciting the words that Joseph Smith has in his history of the first vision of seeing God and Jesus Christ in that vision, being able to recite that is powerful. If you don't have that memorized, get it memorized and be able to teach it from memory, because being able to, doing it from the scriptures is still powerful. Given a certain moment, it can still be powerful. Having an investigator read from the scriptures is powerful. But being able to look into your investigator's eyes and have it memorized and teach it by the Spirit is powerful. And that's what I had the fortunate opportunity of doing so in that situation, and was able to look them all in the eye, all three of them in the eye, and even looked at Elder Dye, and he smiled at me at the end of it. I memorized that and taught that to him. Spirit was very strong. We finished the lesson, invited him to come to church, coming to find out that all three of them were YSAs, young single adults, in which Elder Dye and his companion were over. So that he actually, instead of that, extended the invitation. We gave him the Book of Mormon. Come to find out they were starting to be active, and ended up being transferred out of that area. But it was fun to know that had happened. It was, the Spirit was so strong. And I knew that the Lord had prepared him, and that we're continuing to prepare him and teach him the gospel. And it was fun. So that was probably my second favorite lesson. My favorite lesson I think I remember teaching was in my last of two areas. I had two areas in Springfield, the Hickory Hills and Hillcrest wards. We were teaching the Hickory Hills area. Teaching, I can't remember his name now. teaching a brother and his wife and his daughter. Had already taught the brother, big black brother, very, very kind, very humble. We can be loud at times, obviously, as people can, but very humble and modest. His wife was as well. Ended up teaching him the new member lesson. Oh, Giles, Brother Giles, that's what's his name, Brother Giles. Taught him the recent convert lessons. Shortly after he was baptized, we finished those up for him. After we were finished teaching him those lessons, though, we told him the last lesson that we had for him. We told him it was the last lesson, and of course he was scared spitless. He was like, "You guys are going to come over still, though, right?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, we'll still come over. Like, we know you need it." Like we knew he didn't have a strong grasp of the gospel, and so we knew he needed to be taught more. So we said, "Well, we can keep coming over, but we have I guess a deal to make with you." And he goes, "What's that?" And he goes, "We know your daughter isn't a member," which their daughter is. Her name was Sydney. She was kind of a low-functioning 21-year-old, about the same age as my companion and I, and she was probably about maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old, trapped in a 21-year-old body. So one of a special daughter of God, a special sister. But she was high-functioning enough to somewhat carry on a conversation. Not totally intelligent, obviously, but was still high-functioning enough to be able to do some things by her own. So we asked his permission if we could teach her. And so asked his wife, Sister Giles, and Sister Giles warned us. She goes, "It's hard for us to teach her something. She has to do some things by herself to learn stuff." And what was really fun was the Spirit was still there from our lesson. Even though we had said a closing prayer, the Spirit was still there. I looked at my companion, he looked at me, we looked at them, and said, "If you let us teach her, she will get it. We know she will. We will find what she needs to understand the gospel." She teared up a little bit, which was kind of nice, but she teared up a little bit and said, "Okay, that's fine." So we came over the next week and had the restoration ready. What was nice is we were like, there's no way we're going to be able to just sit there and just teach her like normal. There's got to be a simpler, easier, quicker way we can teach the gospel and teach the restoration to her. How can we do it? So basically from the time we got out that week till that next week that we were ready, we were like, how can we teach her the restoration quickly, simply, and efficiently? And it took us all the way till, because I think it was about a Thursday. No, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday that we taught. We taught them on Wednesdays in the afternoon. And it wasn't until Monday on our preparation day, as we were emailing our families. I was just messing around on LDS.org, just looking at some of the Mormon videos and other things that were on there. It's kind of the highlight entertainment part of your life sometimes. If you have access to a computer, you get to look at LDS.org and some of the fun articles that are on there. But I found a restoration video that was about 2.5 minutes long that perfectly covered the Book of Mormon, the restoration, and everything else. And it summarized. It basically took Preach My Gospel's lesson and put it in video form in 2.5 minutes. It was perfect. So I watched it, I shared it with my companion, and he's like, "That's perfect, that's what we're going to share." And I was like, "Well, we need something to share on, though." And so we didn't have any iPads, we didn't have anything, which our iPad was, our mission was cleared to have iPads, but we didn't have them at the time. So I knew our ward mission leader had an iPad, but I was like, we should ask for permission for this. So I called the assistants and let him know the situation and asked him if we could use the member's iPad if we got permission from him. And he goes, "If it's just for that lesson, that's fine. Then return it to your ward mission leader and you'll be done." And I said, "That's fine. That's all we need it for." So when I asked the ward mission leader, he said, "Yes, go for it." He was like, "Oh, which one is it? Let me look it up really quick." So he watched it himself and he goes, "That's going to be good." He goes, "If I had the time away from my job, I would come here because I'm excited for that lesson." So he downloaded that video for us on his iPad, and we So we were ready. Wednesday evening, went over with that video, showed it to him, opened up with prayer, played the video, and Brother Giles kind of cried a little bit, which I didn't see it. I never really saw him cry a little bit, but I saw him tear up a little bit. Sister Giles even a little bit too. She was a little bit easier to cry, but you could tell the Spirit was strong when the video ended. So turn off the iPad, and I can't remember who started speaking first. It was either me or my companion, but one of us asked Sydney and said, "Sydney, did you like that video?" And she said, "Yeah." And then we said, "Do you believe that the church is true?" And she started to cry. But with her cries were a little different. Being not as high functioning as she is, being I'm not sure, I don't remember if it was Down syndrome or what she had, but it could have meant one of two things. Either A, she was just kind of having one of her moments, or B, she was feeling the Spirit, and I was hoping it was the second option. But we just sat there. I looked at my companion, he looked at me worried, and I just gave him the eye of like, hold on a minute, like let's see where this goes. Which in missionary work, that's okay. Sitting in a lesson and just waiting. It's okay to just wait. Just let the Spirit marinate with everybody. Just let the Spirit go to work, because the Spirit is the teacher, not you. So I gave my companion the stink eye. I was like, just shut up, just let the Spirit work. But we only sat there for I think it was about 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds. It wasn't too long. She stopped crying just enough to look up at her mom, at Sister Giles. And she smiled. She smiled at us. Sister Giles did. And then I looked at my companion, I nodded. And so I said, "Sydney," she looked at me, and I said, "Did you like that video?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you believe that the Book of Mormon is true?" And she cried while she nodded, yes. I said, "Do you believe that Joseph Smith saw God in Jesus?" And she continued to cry, continuing to nod. I said, "Do you believe that the church has been restored to this earth like the video taught?" And she kept crying, kept nodding. The Spirit was so strong. I think probably one of the strongest I've ever felt it, other than getting confirmation from Heavenly Father that for myself that this church was true. That was probably the strongest I've ever felt it. But that there in that moment with Sydney was probably one of the strongest I've ever felt the Spirit. It was a nice, comfortable, warm, strong confirmation that she knew that this was true, despite her being in her physical and mental conditions. She knew. So I said, "Okay, Sydney, will you be baptized?" And smile from ear to ear, tears running down her cheeks. She said, "Yes, I will." So of course, Brother Giles, he just started crying. He was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then Sister Giles was like, "Awesome, that's cool." So then Sydney just got up and left, which was okay. So, which that whole lesson, including the video, only took about 4 or 5 minutes. Which just previous to that, President Loveland, who had come in at the time, was probably only a mission president at that time for about, maybe about 8 months, not even a year yet. He was starting to teach us and saying we need short, sweet, powerful lessons. If you go longer than an hour, you need to get out of there. If you can do less than an hour, that'd be good. Like, you need to stay within no more than 30 minutes even. If you can do 10 to 15, that's perfect. 5, perfect. 2 minutes, perfect. And so that was kind of our goal with Sydney, which worked out great. We were only in there 5 minutes, doing the lesson, said a quick prayer, and then we even talked about kind of some of our baptism arrangements and said, "Okay, when do we want to have her baptized?" And they were like, "How quick can you get her taught?" And we said, "Well, we can come in a couple times. We can come in more often. We can come in a couple times a week, and teach for 5 to 10 minutes." And they said that'd be fine. That'd be good. We'd have time for that. So changed our schedule, and I think we went in on Thursday, and it was either Monday and Wednesday or Wednesday and Friday, I can't remember. But went in a couple times a week, did 10 to 15 minutes, and just taught our lessons, just got them knocked out quick. And finally got a date set for, I think it was a week or two after we got the lessons done. Had a really good turnout for that baptism. But it was so amazing to me how quick but how powerful the Spirit can work, and how the work can get done if done right. That if you're worthy, if your companion's worthy, if those you're teaching are ready, and it's the Lord's will, and you have the right, if everything is set right, it doesn't take you long to be able to bring the Spirit in and to teach and to invite and to bring our brothers and sisters back. It doesn't take long. It shouldn't take long. That's why the Lord's work is hastening. It's because it doesn't take long. I guess for pre-missionaries, if you don't have a testimony, you need a testimony. You're not going to last, especially in this mission, but even in any mission, but especially in the Arkansas Bentonville Mission out in the South. You are not going to last without a testimony. You might not even last the MTC without a testimony. If you don't have one, get on your knees and dig deep. You need a testimony. You need to ask your Father in heaven if the church is true. That's what I had to do. And I testify that the church is true. I don't think I will ever let go of my testimony, ever give my testimony away. I don't think I will ever bear false witness of my testimony, even if a gun is pointed at my head and I were given all the money the world could offer to me to say my testimony is false. I would not do it because of the Spirit that has been testified to me, the miracles I've seen firsthand, everything that I've experienced. There's no way, I feel like there's no way I could give my testimony away, because I know that Heavenly Father loves me, and I know that He loves his other sons and daughters, my brothers and sisters. And because He loves them, I need to love them. I have a testimony of the Book of Mormon, that it is the Word of God, another testament of Jesus Christ, that it complements the Bible and the other Latter-day Scriptures to help us understand the doctrines and the teachings and the lives of our brothers and sisters who live anciently, who lived those doctrines and principles taught by Jesus Christ and the prophets and the apostles. I have a testimony that those sacred works are true, that the Book of Mormon is real, that by reading it every day we can understand better the doctrines that are in there, as well as the other scriptures. I have a testimony of Joseph Smith, that he was God's prophet. I know there are so many people in that mission, and even here in Salt Lake, all around the world, that would discredit Joseph Smith, that he was a lunatic. He was a crazy teenager to have so-called experienced this vision and to have seen Christ and the Father. And my only explanation is, pray about it. I can share my testimony with you all day till I'm blue in the face. And sometimes that's what I did, because I got to the point where I was like the sons of Mosiah. Just the feeling of somebody not having the gospel kind of shook me, and it terrified me. And so I tried to work hard. And I hope that other missionaries end up being like that. But there's sometimes where you just can't win somebody over, that if you don't have the Spirit, you can't get it done. You can testify all day till you're blue in the face, but sometimes people just aren't ready. But as long as you have that testimony, you'll be okay. I testify that we do have a Latter-day Prophet, that's part of what separates us from other denominations, other churches, is that we have a modern prophet who's the modern mouthpiece for us to know as a church and as a body of God's children what we need to be doing to prepare for the second coming of the Savior. I have a testimony of the priesthood. That is the biggest doctrine, the biggest principle, the biggest thing that separates us from the rest of the world. That the priesthood is what is able to make miracles happen. That with faith and hope, that the priesthood works, and that the priesthood is able to bless lives through those who are worthy of the priesthood, acting as instruments and voices of the Lord. The priesthood can bless lives. It is so wonderful as a missionary to confirm the Holy Ghost using the Melchizedek priesthood on a newly baptized member to then become a convert. It is wonderful to be able to bless, whether it be a member or non-member, to lay my hands on their head and to bless their lives, no matter physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever the case may be able to bless them, to open the windows of heaven and bless their lives with the priesthood that I hold. I continually strive to live worthy of that, and I would exhort all of you brethren, to live worthy of that priesthood so that you can bless others with it. I have a testimony of not only through the priesthood that eternal families can be together, that eternal families can be together because of the priesthood, because of the sealing power. I'm so grateful that I get to be together with my family. Just recently married, been married about 9 months now, as of today of October. Got married end of December of 2016. Been married about 9.5 months now. Was sealed to my spouse. And it was so wonderful, the peace and the spirit that was in the Payson temple that I was married in. So wonderful that I knew that I was sealed to my wife. And knowing that even if I were to drive home tonight and crash and die, that yes, my wife would mourn over me. My family would mourn over me. But they know that I am sealed to them, and I will see them in the next life. I will see them because of that sealing power. And that is the ultimate goal of a missionary, is to get your investigators to the temple, to get them doing baptisms, to get them through their endowments, and to get them sealed so that we can return them with us to Heavenly Father, to bring all of us back to Father. That is our goal. That is Heavenly Father's goal, and we are to help with that. As far as, I guess, advice that I would give to a new missionary going out to this mission is, for elders, bring some short sleeve shirts. You're going to need it. It's going to be humid. Because of the Gulf, the waters that are there in the Gulf, they carry up, and it gets humid. It gets very, very humid. It could probably be about 80, 85, 90 degrees, but feel like you're just in 100+ degree weather. You could be in even 100-degree weather, and you feel like you're in 200-degree weather. You feel like it feels like you're in a sauna, really. You're just dripping sweat, and your pores are just open. It feels gross. You feel sticky. So bring some short sleeve shirts. Sisters have short sleeve shirts ready. The wind does help with that as you're going. So maybe have like a cloth or something with you, maybe. I didn't have anything like that. I just had if we went over for dinner, I'd go wash up really quick and use a paper towel or something, wipe off my forehead or whatever. But just know it gets humid and it gets hot really quick, especially during the summer. In the winter, the humidity's still there. It's cold, but what really gets you is the wind with the humidity, that it almost doesn't even matter how many layers you have on. It fights through your layers and still gets to you. So have some thermal garments, have some thermal clothes, dress warm, dress well, because the humidity will get you. Be open to people. I guess as more advice goes, just be open to people. Be open to their lives. If you're not, as the golden rule goes, treat others as you would treat you. You treat people well. You treat people as you should as a missionary. They will treat you well. The people there in the Arkansas Bentonville Mission are good people. That was one of the things I loved about my mission, is I loved the people, whether they were members or non-members. They were so welcoming. We could knock on their house and talk to them. We could be walking on the street and talk to people. They were so warm and friendly and opening. There were not a lot of people that weren't so. They were very welcoming and friendly, open to talk about whatever, religion, who won the game, whether it be football, basketball, talk about sports. You could talk about their families, anything. You can talk about anything. They're just open, warm, and friendly. Obviously, each area, each city is different. Each one has a different feel to them, for sure. But in general, most everybody's is open. You're going to see a lot of broken families. In broken down cities, you're going to see some broken families. You're going to see that even if they are members, or even if they're not members, that the gospel isn't lived. That there's a difference between having the gospel and living the gospel. And that's part of what you're there for. Not only are you there to teach people and to bring people to the waters of baptism, there may be some less actives out there that's your whole job in a whole area, is to help with the less actives and to help bring them back into the fold. I think that was probably a big, what we did as a major thing. I think it was in Bentonville. I mean, we had a few investigators, but that's mostly what we did in Bentonville. We had one of the smaller areas in the mission geographically, but it was very member dense. Probably had 400 members in our geographical area. It was probably like 2 miles by 4 miles. It was very, very small geographically, but very member dense. So there were a few investigators here and there, obviously, that members would refer to us. But everybody's just so open, warm, and friendly. Just love the people, serve them. I mean, obviously, your goal is to teach them and to convert them, or bring the Spirit to be able to convert them, to work on them. But just love them, serve them, and you will see them as Heavenly Father sees them. That was so wonderful to have the mission goggles on, and to see. It was like Heavenly Father so many times just took off his glasses, reached through the heavens, and let you see your brother and sister as he sees them. It was so much fun. So much fun. Just be yourself. Be open to change. You're going to change on the mission. I went from a bratty, thought I knew it all, religion kid. Didn't have a chip on my shoulder necessarily. I didn't show it, but if you were to ask me questions as a 17, 18-year-old, I thought I knew it. I didn't, which I still know I don't. I'm still studying, still learning, but definitely not as cocky as I was. Your family's going to change. Your friends are going to change. Just be open to change. Be open to letting the Savior and letting the Lord work on you as He's working on your family, working on your investigators. Not only is the work's going on there in the mission, but there's also work going on back home. So stay connected with your family. Stay connected and be yourself. I'm so grateful for the mission. Taught me so much. How to get along with others, not from my companion to fellow missionaries, to my mission president. There were a few times where I'm like, President, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Why? But hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, I'm like, okay, there was a reason he did that. There was a reason he did that. There are always reasons for things. You may not even know what the reasons are, even after you come home from mission. It could be 20 years later after you come home, you still don't know. Obviously, agency plays into things, but just be open to things. There's so much the mission taught me. So grateful for each of my companions, from my trainer to my last companion, Elder Skinner. Each one of them taught me so many different things. Your companions will teach you so many things, from the obvious of patience all the way to how to be a better missionary, how to be a better person. They'll teach you so many attributes of Christ that they may have already mastered. They may not think they've mastered them, but they've mastered them. How to have fun, how to be yourself, how to be humble. There's so many things you learn from your companions that I'm learned so many things from each one. How to be myself, how to be fun, how to be let my awkwardness just come forward, admitting to my awkwardness, letting others be themselves, just kind of rolling with the punches. Patience, especially, like I said, with Stockton, it was my first transfer there was the hardest for sure. My companion that I was sending off, he did not like to work. He was very much checked out very early, and so I had the unpleasurable time to kill him off. But I was able to get some work out of him, and I was able to learn patience with him. So the day before he finally left, I said a prayer and I said, Father, let me be able to work with my new companion, Elder Dixon, who then came in after me, or after Elder Slack, excuse me. I said, please let the fire come back. Let my desire and my fire to work come back. And it did. It did. I was so very grateful for that. So many members taught me a lot. So many non-members taught me a lot. There was a non-member in Bartlesville. It wasn't in our ward boundaries, but it was in the ward boundaries next to us. His name was Merle Lay in Bartlesville. Did a Tuesday house, what was called Tuesday House. It was a thrift store that was there in the community, and we helped there on Tuesdays and helped him pick up stuff from people's houses they didn't want anymore, or drop stuff off that people ordered. He was a Baptist himself, but it was fun to be able to talk to him and even the rest of the people there in Tuesday House about different things. But very, very kind man. I think the biggest thing he taught me, which I've kind of mastered this and still have, is the idea of to be early to things, to be on time to things, because you can be prepared for things when you're early, be mentally and physically prepared. And he taught me more fully, because there was a time when during Tuesday House we went to his house for a quick bite to eat, and so it was just me, my companion, and the two other elders that were in that ward boundaries there that Merle lived in. And so we were going to his house to have a quick bite to eat, and we were just slacking off, just roaming around the streets, just being dorks, and got to his house, I think like 20, 30 minutes late. I mean, it was late. I was like, elders, like, we need to get to his house now because we need to get back to Tuesday House and work. Of course, they were messing with me. They're like, no, Elder Harding, like, stop. It's not a big deal. But we got to his house, and that was the first thing he grilled us on. He goes, elders, you need to be on time. When you get home from your mission and you're on a date with a girl, you need to be on time. When you go to a job interview, you need to be on time. If you're late again, we're going to start the meal without you. And we said, okay, we're all sorry about that. So learn to be on time, learn patience from several different people, several different families, learn humility, kindness, charity. I just learned Christ-like attributes. I was very grateful for that. And I learned the gospel along the way. Of course, you start pre-MTC, learn in the MTC, and that crash course of missionary work in the MTC. You learn in the field about the gospel, but you continually to learn. And it was interesting the insights you learn as you're in lessons, as you study, the insights on different doctrines that you get. And it's so much fun even when you're in the middle of a lesson and you get to share your insight right then on the spot, because the Spirit's like, hey, like, here's this insight, now share it with the investigator, and that sticks with you. It's so much fun. I've learned so much from the mission. If your companion's slacking off, don't be afraid to smack them around. Not physically, obviously, not literally, but to smack them around a little bit and to say, elder sister, what are you here for? What are you doing? Like, we need to get to work. I know there were times I slacked off and my companion called me out on it, and I was grateful for that. I was so grateful that they called me out on it. I said, you know what, you're right. I'm just feeling lazy, feeling tired. There's obviously something behind if an elder or sister is not working. There's always something behind it, whether it be something at home, something they're dealing with, something on the mission that's bugging them. It could be you that's bugging them. It could be something inside them that's bugging them. But learn to love your companions. Learn to love the other missionaries. And let them work in their own way, because obviously the Spirit works with you in a different way than your companion or other missionaries. But let them work. It's fun to just, especially when you're in a lesson and of course you've prepared a lesson, the two of you, but you go in and it may be, the Spirit may take it a total different direction, and you may not necessarily know what direction it's going to go. The Spirit does. You just open your mouth and you just let it come out. You just let the Spirit talk through you. You just talk and let the Spirit go. But it's so much fun to just sit back and let your companion go, because the Spirit's like, hey, go, and your companion just goes, and your investigator just soaks it in, and you just sit back, you just listen, and oh my goodness, I think probably one of my favorite stories with that one is I was with Elder Skinner, who's a very good teacher, my last companion, very, very good teacher. We were at the Giles house actually in Springfield, and teaching Sydney I think it was the Restoration again or the Plan of Salvation again as a recent convert lesson. And she was just having one of her moments, and it was hard to teach her. We were trying to show her that video again, but she just wasn't having it. And in like 30 seconds or a minute, Elder Skinner just said, Sydney, are you all right? She goes, yeah. And he goes, what can you tell me about the Restoration? And so in the clearest sentence I heard her say, she goes, Joseph Smith saw God in Jesus. And he goes, do you believe that? She said, yeah. He goes, okay. And then he bore his testimony of what she had said and testified of. He bore testimony of it. And that was our lesson. It's just so wonderful to see your companions take over in a sense. Let the Spirit work in them. So let your companions teach. There's a time for you to teach. A time for your companion to teach. So just let that happen. Let the Spirit do its work. That's what the Spirit is for. It's a fun mission. Roll with it. Have fun with it. Let the Spirit change you. Let the mission change you. Come home. Let the mission be the mission, but come home as a changed individual, as a changed son or daughter of God. Come home with the perspective that the mission's given you and apply it to your home life. Just do the best you can.